A screen by Green. The switch to Lively. Three. Curry.
The Warriors have just destroyed the best team in the West after asserting their dominance with a 30-point third-quarter lead, separating the men from the boys. All this with a new starting lineup. Hey, what's happening, everyone? This is Swish Culture. The Warriors right now are the number one team in the West, having faced the three other top teams in the league. I do not care what anyone has to say about injuries because Golden State has had more than its fair share, including Stephen Curry being out for multiple games. No more excuses from ESPN. No more moving the goalposts. Accept it for what it is. Your Golden State Warriors are the best team in the Western Conference. End of story. In one road trip, the Warriors played the three other top teams in the Eastern and Western Conference and won 2 games out of 3, losing only once to the as-yet unbeaten Cleveland Cavaliers. By the way, if you've ever heard of the term outlier and have no clue as to what it means, please watch that Warriors-Cavs game recap. On the other hand, it's probably not a great game if you're a Dubs fan. Either way, at the end of the day, you won't win every game, but if the games you're losing are going to the best teams in the league in one-off scenarios, you can still feel good about what they're doing because in the grand scheme of an NBA season, this means absolutely nothing. A 7-game series is a different ballgame entirely. What I'm getting at here is that regardless of the loss, this doesn't change the fact that the Warriors are legitimate contenders. Prior to the Boston Celtics matchup, they said the Warriors hadn't played against any good teams. After losing to the Cavaliers, all of a sudden, the Cavaliers are now contenders. A few games later, after putting belt to backside on 2 of the league's best teams, I'm expecting the goalpost of Warriors' expectations to have more movement than Stephen Curry this season. The Warriors' ex-assistant coach, Kenny Atkinson, has been leading the Cavaliers team this season, and they've been on an absolute tear. They've beaten the Lakers, Magic, the Bucks twice, and the Pelicans. While their schedule could be tougher, the Warriors are the strongest team that the Cavs have managed to beat in that time period. And even though the loss does look bad, quite a few things had to go wrong for that to happen. I'll be discussing those in today's video, as well as the OKC Thunder vs. Warriors matchup. That game was fairly interesting. Unfortunately, Chet Holmgren fell to injury just 5 minutes in, forcing the now centerless Thunder to play small ball, something just a little different than playing 5 out. The Thunder are not exactly a small team when fully healthy, but with new signee Isaiah Hartenstein out with injury, their sole center Chet Holmgren was the last player they had over 6'9". The Warriors seized this opportunity and went even smaller to maximize the number of skilled players on the floor. After having subbed Trayce Jackson-Davis out for JP2, the Warriors elected to avoid utilizing any of their traditional centers the rest of the game. Let's see the impact this had on the team, OKC's response, and how Golden State was able to close out the game. Before that 2-for-1, however, become a member of my channel by hitting the join button down below. Remember, all it takes is the cost of a cocoa bread to become a part of the Swish Culture community. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Swish Culture for the most analytical and entertaining NBA content on the planet. Now get ready. You're about to get Now I know the first thing some of you thought after the Warriors lost to the Cavs. Are the Warriors really a legit team? After all, they were down by 40 points in Cleveland. If the Warriors are a contending team, how could they lose to any team in the league for that matter by that many points? The truth is, the Cleveland Cavaliers are a tough matchup for Golden State. They've got a 6'11" power forward in Evan Mobley and Still, the Twin Towers in Cleveland make it difficult for the Warriors to generate offense inside the paint, lest we forget Evan Mobley when healthy is one of the best defenders in the league. With that type of size on the interior, it then becomes quite easy for these guys to put up easy baskets at the other end of the floor. What's interesting is that despite the size advantage, they didn't rely too much on getting in the paint. This might be more shocking than you'd realize because the Warriors started off with what could arguably be at the time their best defensive lineup. They started with Curry, GP2, Wiggins, Draymond, and Trayce. Unfortunately, there was too much of a focus on defense, and along with the Twin Towers, the Warriors' offense collapsed even before the game began. With GP2, the Warriors gave up shooting and shot creation for a small guy who typically makes his baskets inside the paint. The Cavs made them pay by eliminating the Warriors' sole offense, Steph Curry. Thus, without the additional creator, the team was hapless. But that wasn't even the worst. Cleveland knew their bigs were a threat in the paint. However, instead of leaning on them for baskets, they were simply used as screen setters and decoys. Their bigs would set the screens, and Garland, along with the rest of the shooters at Cleveland, would put on a shooting clinic. The Cavs weren't only a good team that night, they were on fire. Do you guys remember Ty Jerome from 2 seasons ago? Yeah, he had 20 points where just about everything he hoisted up at the rim went in. Those 20 points were by far his most in a game this season. While the Warriors ended up losing by 20 points, this game was totally uncharacteristic. The truth is that there will always be at least one of these types of games, even in the championship years. Am I saying this Cavs game was a fluke? On the Warriors side, yeah. The second defensive team in the league played well below average. On the Cavs side, not exactly. They're one of the most potent offenses in the league, and the 136 points they scored against Golden State ties that of their highest score this season, a feat they achieved in their first game and have come close a few other times. The reason why this was a fluke loss from the Warriors' perspective is something very simple, and I can explain it in just 3 letters: OKC. The Warriors were on the last leg of their road trip, and OKC has had the best record in the Western Conference for 2 seasons in a row. After the loss against Cleveland, a lot of people started doubting the Warriors' win against Boston. The Warriors needed a convincing win in OKC to be taken seriously, as the team started the season with serious doubts about its ceiling, and a loss could make the win against Boston seem like a fluke. With DeAnthony Melton back in the fold after a short absence relating to intermittent back issues, Steve Kerr was able to utilize the lineup that has so far eluded the Warriors up to this point in the season. While they started with Andrew Wiggins in the backcourt next to Stephen Curry to allow JK into the starting lineup, the fit was a bit awkward. It was obvious that this group needed to be on the floor for a longer period for things to flow offensively. Steve had verbally committed to giving that lineup some significant time to get it to work, only to renege some 3 games later. This new lineup featuring Curry, Melton, Wiggins, Draymond, and Trace seems to be the lineup going forward. While most people tend to agree on this fit and Steve Kerr seems to prefer this going forward for a number of reasons, this could become a problem for the Warriors down the road. We'll get to that in a bit once we see how this unit played against OKC. Now, Trace was taken out of the lineup after 5 minutes, and shortly thereafter, Chet went down with what turned out to be a hip fracture. On a challenge to a baseline drive from Wiggins, Chet met Wiggins a bit too far up north and unfortunately couldn't find his way back down. While the painful fall is not season-ending, it'll be a while before Chet gets back onto the floor. The Thunder were forced to play small, going to an all-guard lineup. The Warriors' adjustment was quick. They neglected to bring a center off the bench as Kerr preferred to match OKC's guards with his own small ball lineup. It was notable that Jonathan Kuminga didn't enter the game until the 2-minute and 39-second mark of the first quarter. A bit of an eyebrow-raising fact, considering he was the Warriors' best player in the prior game. My thing is, if you're going to put Kuminga on the bench to start, don't let him sit until 2 minutes left to go in the first quarter before putting him in the game as the 10th guy off the bench. Nothing kills a player's confidence more than the coach telling him the team doesn't need him. And after what he did against Cleveland, being the only player to be able to penetrate and score on their defense, having to sit against a young and athletic team like OKC as a 22-year-old for Kuminga is a slap in the face and disavowal of what he did for the team. This gives me shades of last season where JK was out of the rotation completely before coming in to rescue the Warriors against another young team, the Trail Blazers. But we'll talk about his fit in the lineup as well in just a minute. The Warriors began to open up a lead near the end of the second quarter, but really blew it open in the third. Up by 30, Steve Kerr took his foot off the gas as the second unit struggled against a tenacious and desperate OKC defense. The 30-point lead was cut down to 17 before Steve Kerr called for a timeout as the Thunder were relentless in attacking Golden State in transition. A full hockey substitution by Kerr didn't really help as the Thunder continued to pummel Golden State, cutting the lead down to single digits. Shades again of the prior season as it seemed the Warriors would cough up a 30-point lead. A last-minute adjustment by Kerr kept the Thunder at bay, and the Warriors managed to sneak away with a double-digit win. The reason why the Warriors struggled was that the usual plus-minus monster in Pods just wasn't doing the things he usually does. He struggled defensively and was even worse on offense. The box scores showed Pods at the 15-minute mark as having a -10, despite the team being up by 17 points. He had 1 assist and 1 rebound. Now, this isn't a knock against Pods. This is a rare bad game from one of the best sophomore players in the league. This happens. As the connector and floor general for the group, Pods' performance on both ends of the floor and in transition was lacking, causing the Warriors to give up a lot of points and boards to the Thunder. When a player like Pods plays well, his teammates look good. As a result of his play in this particular game, guess what happened? His teammates looked bad. All 5 were pulled from the game, and the starting unit with GP2 replacing Trace went in. You'd think this would solve the problem, but it didn't. Not until Steve Kerr made the adjustment that would help him win the game. It wasn't until the 4-minute and 52-second mark where JK re-entered the game for GP2. The Warriors were only up by 9 at this point in the game. This was their pivotal moment. With Kuminga back on the floor, the Warriors would stave off the resurgence by the Thunder and win the game. But does anyone know why this happened? Look back at the Cavs game. The Warriors started out with a 4-man defensive team plus Steph Curry. The problem is that when teams look at your lineup and notice that your only scoring threat is Stephen Curry, he gets blitzed. No other player in the league gets as much attention as a lone Steph Curry. Jonathan Kuminga entered the game and with effortless athleticism finishes off an easy lob while the Thunder were preoccupied with Steph. It was at that moment that they realized that if they gave too much attention to Curry, they will likely end up losing the game anyway. The Warriors have another player that can easily score off the dribble or finish as a lob threat. This gave Steph just enough room to be able to take the Warriors home, hitting multiple threes and getting to the line for free throws. The last thing today is likely the biggest going forward. That is, Steve Kerr has verbally committed to this lineup that started against the Thunder. Now, I've floated a number of starting lineups that Steve could go with to start the season, this being one of them. All the lineups have their strengths as well as weaknesses. The strength of this lineup is that it gives the Warriors plenty of shooting that allows Trace to be inside the paint on offense. Now, the reason I discussed all this is that Steve Kerr has made it clear he likes to have at minimum 3 shooters on the floor for spacing. Well, in his last 5 games, JK has hit 47% of his threes, going 9 for 19 from deep. While he had a slow start, you could see he started to figure out his position in the lineup by the 3rd game. But by then, it was too late. While his first good game came while he was in the starting lineup, the follow-up saw him come off the bench, causing his second good game to coincide with his bench play. At this juncture, without much in the way of data, Steve places him on the bench in order to keep that rhythm. This was a mistake in my opinion that will come back and hurt the Warriors down the road. While I like the idea of Melton in the starting lineup, the injury risk is high and the Warriors will waste his abilities on regular season games and then have to readjust when he inevitably goes out with the same recurring back issue. I'd love to be wrong on this, but from what I've seen, I think a role similar to Buddy Hield might be best for Melton. That would still be a dangerous second unit if he can be the second or third facilitator behind Steph and could step up when we need him in the playoffs. It would make sense for the Warriors from a financial standpoint, and it'll also give the Warriors the best shot at winning a title this season without a trade. If you keep playing Kuminga against backup players and not in the starting lineup building chemistry in the starting 5, you run the risk of neither him nor Melton being of much help in the playoffs. Anyway, regardless of what happens, the Warriors are going to win a ton of regular season games because, as I've said before, this roster is Kerr-proof, and questioning their ability to make the playoffs would be laughable at this point. My only concern right now is what's best for the team in that playoff scenario. Can Melton stay healthy? Is Trayce Jackson-Davis going to get enough minutes to allow him to develop into the player he could become by the end of the season? Very slippery slope, so be careful. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Melton's health, TJD's projection for the playoffs, and Kuminga's ability to help the team in his 4th year. Post your thoughts in the comments below. Before that, however, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all your notifications so you don't miss any of my latest uploads. Thanks for watching. Till next time.
Switch to Lively.